All right. I'll talk to you later. Bye.
We're going to call this meeting to order, a special city council meeting and workshop of the governing body of the city of Blanco, January 27th, 2026, 5:02 p.m. And roll call, please. One, Mayor Candy Cargill, present. Mayor Tim Dennis Moore. Councilmember Bobby McClung. Councilmember Roger Brookhill.
Present.
Councilmember Davey Burns here.
Present.
Councilmember Brian Moses.
Present.
President County. We have a little invocation. We can just stay seated. If you bow your heads, gracious God, thank you for carrying us through the ice and uncertainty. We are grateful, we are safe, and we move forward together. Grant us wisdom, calm, and care for one another as we meet. Amen. Whoops.
But I know she just loves our meetings, so she's probably just here to
No,
hear
well,
us.
I am, but you have.
You
blessed
bring it
us.
up.
And I don't feel like I need to do anything.
No, go ahead. No,
We want to hear you.
So then, I'd be happy to just add my prayers, if you'll bow your heads. Gracious God, we just, I thank you for the elected officials for this town, for all of the people that serve Blanco and call it home. Bless all who are here present and help us to hear your will for this community. Help us always serve you and love you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. And shall I lead you in a prayer?
Please.
Please. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor and grace to the flag. I pledge allegiance to one state under God, one indivisible.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And, pretty short announcement. One, the county commissioners did repeal the burn ban today in the commission meeting. And they also had a proclamation of J. David Bamberger Day in Blanco County, Texas. I'm not going to do all the whereas, I know you love to hear. But on June 11th, every year, it will be Douglas J. David Bamberger Day. And I don't know if y'all remember, but the Bambergers were very strong here in Blanco also. I know Jan and John do, because that they rented Redbud, I guess, from them, or he bought Redbud from them.
From
Doug,
yeah,
yeah. And then Bam is still here.
the child.
Yeah, yeah. They have it's not just the county, they have a whole in Blanco also. And we will miss that lovely man and very much. He is really great at his. So, public comments, Mary Ann Kramer. Great West.
Just a quick question, because I was looking on the website today and I'm just wondering, I understand it's going to be updated and I was wondering if there's going to be transparency with having the rates posted and like we have access to look at different things on it. I think, well, of course we will, but if there's a.
I know it's done by Civic Plus. If you go on Kerrville's website or on Shirts, it's going to be similar to those. So, and any suggestions that we can add, I'm sure.
And who would I contact if there are any suggestions?
Myself.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And we look forward to it very much.
It's gonna go online this Friday, if I understand.
Yes.
Okay, there is no consent agenda. And a lot of you I know are here for the utility rate workshop. And we're going to run through the business real quick. And then we're going to do that where we can briefly. So with that, whole business consideration and discussion and take possible action on petitions for sanitation by Eric Moses, and I would like to table that. And then update discussion and take possible action in regard to funding for the rock wall.
I think Mayor, Council, So earlier this year in 2025, when we were working on the 2024 aid, that was a $1.5 million of certificate of obligation that the council authorized. There were a variety of things that were going to get done. One of them you'll hear tonight is starting the north side sewer. The others was getting the rock wall completed. Some of the other projects also included some infrastructure improvements, such as putting in fire hydrants, and there was a generator involved. So everything right now, we are at the point where we were looking at the money being spent. If you remember with the rock wall, we had $150,000 associated with that, which was the majority of that was going to be doing the actual work. But there was no engineering or surveying set aside for that. That's why that stalled. However, when we hear from the engineers tonight about the north side sewer, I believe we'll have about an additional savings of $150,000. A little more than that, but about $150,000 additional that we could spend on the rock wall. So what I'd like for council to do tonight, because obviously it's a great thing to have the bids come in a lot lower than we thought. But with that funding, instead of, I would like a recommendation from council or just a directive to use that money to get some engineering started and come back to you in February with this, February or March, but we will look at engineering and we'll look at the costs associated with the rock wall. But good news that we'll have additional funding.
I don't have.
The only comment would be, I don't want to put out there that we've got $150, that's $150,000. Let's spend $150,000. We want to watch those expenses as we go. So I'm not sure the rock wall should become $300,000 unless that's absolutely needed.
Today is just to explain how much additional money I think we'll have. I think the next step is just to procure an engineer for this, which wouldn't probably be our civil, because this would be I can't think of the name now, but it's a different kind of engineer. Yeah. So structural engineer. So we're going to have to hire a structural engineer to look at what the additional costs.
I'm fine with that. We're just in a public forum. I didn't want to say all engineers are $150,000.
No. We're just not going to spend it. We're just kind of like earmark for the rock wall. Right now.
And if there's any additional funds later on, come back to council.
And I think we would understand that if an emergency came up, the rock wall is a want. And if we need to leave, we have to for a leave, we can always.
Yes, ma'am.
Right?
Yes, ma'am.
I think that we have license.
This is just the update to let you know there's going to be additional funding. Come back to you in February.
Good job.
Is any action needed for that?
So the action will be that staff will seek a structural engineering bid.
Yes, sir. Yes. So I hope to come back to you in February. If I can't, it will be March. I will work on I'll talk tomorrow to the original engineer that did the study and see what he said. And then go.
And there'll be an RFP.
Not necessarily, we don't have to do an RFP, but
For 100, or we don't know what the cost will be, but
with the engineering's not going to be 100, but it's not.
you think it's gonna be 150?
I think the engineering's under 50, but the additional cost. So this is the issue. This has always been, but $150,000 that was provided, that was going to be the cost of the wall. But if you have a new engineer, those plans could be in 50 or 60,000. But the additional cost of doing it a different way, the way that an engineer would instruct, so create additional costs. We don't know what those are. This is just to update you that we have additional funds a little bit.
And will the mandate of the structural engineer, I mean, is it, well, whatever we're looking to design to repair and or replace the rock wall, it's in support of our current comprehensive master plan?
I did look at the comprehensive master plan today, and I didn't see anything specifically about the rock wall. I'm not saying it's not in there, but I did check. I didn't see anything in there about that specifically mentioned the rock
And that would fall into the historical district.
wall. But it is a historical district. It is considered somewhat historic.
Okay, very good. And so, now we have new business, consideration, discussion, take possible action on street closures for Founder's Day, March 28th. My birthday.
Is that your birthday?
That's my birthday. Thank you.
Oh, we'll have to have a little birthday party for you.
I'm not Betty Jones.
Wait, you're not-
People figure out.
Okay, y'all are both gonna do it, yeah?
No, Maxine's gonna, he's gonna do that before.
Okay. I was gonna say you're not bad.
No, I'm not bad, and I'm not Betty. I'm the president of the Blanco and Friends, we're the group who puts on the Founder's Day event. And basically, with the sponsorship of the local businesses, we did the first one in 2024. It's a community street dance like the one held in the square, and lots of our residents remember those and enjoy them, and the fact that we're bringing it back. This year, we're going to have similar artists to what we've had in years past. It's going to be a very similar event. As we have every year, we'll have a free kids zone. The community partner booths and all of that is free. This year, we're also having a Pokemon party. That's, don't ask me, that's a Miss Betty thing, because she's a Pokemon player. But people are going to come and find Pokemon all around the square and the park. That's my understanding about that. Although Pokemon are only on the phone. So the nonprofits and the resource groups are charged a fee. That's going to continue. They're not going to be charged a fee to set up booths, doing the fee. The food and drink options are local. And then some of those are also fundraisers for like Blanco do football league and Project Graduation do fundraisers during Founder's Day. And we also have a Blanco made artisan market that we're trying to expand as the years go on. The rules on that are, it has to be Blanco County and it has to be something you make. It can't be something that you resell. We're trying to make sure that our event doesn't cross over into other things that are happening in town. So like our artisan market has some very specific rules that should keep it from being anything like market days.
Right.
Basically, the point of the event is to have a big party for Blanco. I feel like we've accomplished that for the last couple of years. We want to keep doing it moving forward. So our request is that all of 3rd Street be closed starting at 281 and then Pecan Street from 4th Street to 2nd Street. That allows for the room for the street dance, food and drink area, as well as unloading and loading for the artisans and the community partners that are setting the booths up. And we would appreciate the council's support for this focused event. Thank you for your time. I can answer any questions you guys might have about any of that.
Yeah. Did you have all of Pecan Street closed last year? I was trying to remember.
We did not.
Did not, okay.
But my understanding is this has also been recommended to do it this way for public safety as well.
And second question is the same question as last year. Did you speak to all the business owners affected by this?
I think we have, and we will continue to all the way up to the day of the event. We've worked with all the businesses that are willing to work with us.
Okay. But the only reason I asked that is last year I asked that question and all 3 business owners on 3rd Street came to me afterwards and told me that they were not notified. Now, they may have lapse of memory. There's no way proving that, but I just want to make sure that if they have not been contacted, I strongly recommend.
They will be. 3rd Street is the same as it has been every year we've done.
And
Like nothing's changing on
and I
that.
got complaints after last year.
Yeah.
And I'm just letting you know that's what it is. After I asked you if you had spoken with them, they came to me and complained about the street getting closed.
I was told that we had spoke with them. It was Kristen's husband who went around to all the businesses. I know that he went more than one time and tried to talk to everybody. I can go talk to them again. It's interesting to me that we have complaints about it when I hear feedback from the businesses, they have one of their biggest days. So, we're just trying to have a community dance.
I talked to Sandy
Absolutely.
today, Liz was not there, and neither was Heidi, because I went by there for the meeting today, specifically talked to them today, so I could say I just spoke to them, so I did talk to Sandy.
Thank
But
you.
Liz was already gone and Heidi was there.
I appreciate it.
Mhm.
That's it for me.
Okay, John. Is there any other discussion or a motion to, have we spoken with the chief and everything?
Yeah, I
Is the
was
chief?
hoping to hear from him.
It was my recommendation to go ahead and close Third Street from Main to, Pond. Because it does reduce the amount of traffic or any inconveniences during the, staging of the event.
No staffing or anything, no staffing issues or anything.
And to touch on making contact with the business owners, last year I personally went ahead of time and contacted each of the business owners or attempted to contact each of the business owners. So there were efforts made. No return calls on them, not us. So we have made, we but I can't address this year because this year was all on him.
So,
I'll make a motion that we approve the street closures as presented for Founder's Day on March 20th.
a motion, do I have a second? A motion and second, all in favor? All vote. And it's unanimous. Yes, well, thank you. And then you have some lovely flyers, so we can get a sponsor.
Glad to have all the fun certificate.
Thank you for all the hard work that y'all do.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Yeah. Number two, consideration, discussion, take possible action on approval of an election services contract between the city of Blanco and the Blanco County Elections Officer for May 2nd, 2026, uniform election and related services. Is this to be, or is that?
Yeah, I can take that. So this is similar to last year's contract that we had with the county. It's been updated for this year and the positions that are available. Rosemary she's our contact, our elections administrator with the county, and she was due to be here, but due to the shift in the schedule. Oh, are you here? You made it? The microphone is right where your face is. So, she's been handling it for the past couple of years, making sure everything runs smoothly. She helped draft this contract for us. So if there's any specific questions, she was able to be here to answer those for you guys.
If you like to
Do you
hear
need to
from
say
him.
Would you like
anything?
to say anything?
Do you need to say anything?
I do not. Right now we have, I'm sorry. Right now we only have, contracts for the city of Blanco and city of Johnson City and, the, Johnson City ISD also requested a contract, but they have not approved it so I'm not sure if they're gonna be included in that, split. So, for right now, we have the two cities holding an election. And of course, if, there are, if no one else applies for candidacy, then the election can be canceled at any time. Do you have any questions?
And so, this says that. Which part of this is our fault?
I think that's the next item.
It's the last page.
Like a county?
If ISD
Here's a bigger one.
participates,
read
the
that
cost will be
small.
right. Is that correct?
Depends on, if both cities participate, then split 49-51. City of Blanco being 49 and Johnson City being 51. If only one entity participates, then you'll take up the cost of everything on that form.
If ISD jumps in, does that change?
That changes it.
That would bring the cost in.
For us.
So right
The
now,
more entities that participate, the less the cost.
And she was saying to us in the meeting, like the cost estimate is always like at the highest that she can estimate, so it can go down just based on reality and what they actually need.
So much.
15,000,
15?
yeah, 15.
I think you said 12 was already,
0.99,
so 12 was
but
already.
that is
budgeted.
divided between us and Johnson City.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, that's
Seems
good,
like
so
it's
it's half of that right now.
Maybe my memory kills me. I thought it had been quite a bit less than previous years.
Right, because more people
More.
participate, more entity participate.
Is this what you say you're participating?
I do, yes, Johnson City's participating. So it's a 49-51 split for the cost, but there is cost on there that may not be needed, like, for example, the vendor site support, that's $5,026. I don't need that vendor site support. I worked with our vendor for many years, so that's not something that I'm gonna charge. The equipment is, we're allowed to charge $130 for, I'm sorry, $100 for a piece of equipment. I only charge 65 pieces of equipment, so you're not getting the full charge of everything. But we're not gonna leave you with if you're the only one participating in the same, Johnson City participates, we'll work something out in the cost at the end.
Having another Monday. But we're saying that we're splitting the 15 with Johnson City.
38,000.
30,
Yes, so 38,000, so they're splitting with Johnson City.
Mayor, I think there's, what Rosemary is talking about, so when we started in 23, of course, costs have gone up every year.
Yeah.
It is less expensive to do our own collections. However, I think we talked about consistency, that the county, that's what they do. And we can go through this and kind of pick up things that we don't want, and hopefully we get down to 11 or 12, another 15 covers. We get closer to that 10 that was in our budget. Last year though was like 6,000, something else.
Yes, so last year, we had, the city of Blanco, city of Johnson City, we had the groundwater district, and then there was an incorporation election for the city of Hobbs. So that brought down the cost drastically.
And the school district.
Well, they didn't contract with us for the bond.
So the county, so now it's just us in the county.
No, you and Johnson City, and Johnson City.
And which line did you say that you probably don't need?
Like the vendor site support, that's, $5,026, that's a lot of that. I included in there so that
Yeah.
if another entity comes in and they say, I want you to have your vendor here with site support, then I would be required to have that. So I always include it in there, but it's by request.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's like $2,500 that would cost the buyers. And we budgeted, we budgeted 10,000, is that right?
We budgeted 10,000. I was thinking we're gonna probably go over probably 1,500 to 2,000. And if we get this down to 11,500 or 12, I think we'd be okay. I will say though, that the city secretary is taking a lot of her time, especially with election and then the, whatever that's called, before the election. Early voting is taking a lot of time from the city secretary. That's why we've always come out with the calendar.
We all do a great job. I mean,
They do. But we do need to try to get costs down a little bit.
I just.
So after the election is over, we have 30 days to to bill, so in that 30 days, Warren and I and the judge, when this goes to council, or commissioners court, whatever they decide, at the end, then that's what we'll charge. But like I said, it could be less.
Do we need to approve? We need to approve doing this. Same thing. Do we need to approve the amount, Warren, or the?
I think you just approved, not approved.
Yeah, I mean, could not exceed.
Then, do I hear a motion?
One more.
One more question?
Yeah.
Sure.
Just one.
Sure.
3 vacancies on council.
Yes.
To be filled.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah, absent.
That's what I'm wondering. I mean, that's why I'm looking over it.
I believe we approved putting the sales tax issue in front of the voters.
Just like that now, but you have agreed to putting that item in front of the voters.
So then there's 4 different issues in front of her. 3 seats and 1 issue that's.
Doesn't cost them any extra, but yes, there's
Just
Right.
ballot.
Correct.
No, I know, but because we did in the, I mean, not so recent past, we did this in-house.
We did this in-house from my first year here of 22, but then when I heard that the county was offering this, it was something we brought to you because basically the whole month of April, a little bit of May, the city secretary does 50% of her job becomes elections. And it's not something she does all the time. So that's why we looked at it's actually, it's a sense, not a cost savings, but a savings of hours of effort. And you'll thank me later on.
I mean, I, just from attending the election seminar that I just came back from, I wouldn't even just say it's saving me hours, because I think that's a little bit selfish. I think it's a huge insurance policy for the city, because it ensures that it's being done by subject matter experts and it's being handled to the highest standard. Whereas this is my first election. I've never run one at a city. So saying like, well, you know, we still have to get the equipment in order to do so, it's still going to cost funds. We're still going to have to pay for ballots. A lot of these things you would still have to pay for. It would just be my responsibility to make sure it's all done right, which will just take, you know, this is just making sure that it's handled by the best of the best, and the costs, you know, we can kind of work with as we go. But it's not like if we don't do this contract, then it's free, because it's not. It's still going to be, we're still gonna have to hire judges, we're gonna have to hire personnel to be there. It's just, there are still a lot of costs associated with it. That's all I would say. I have no problem working hard, so I don't like that being my defense. Like, I have no problem putting in time. I just want to make sure you know what you're getting if you get this.
I don't believe the options are good if we hold an election in the house to elect our own member. Just throwing that out there. You know? It had been,
That's a
the
good
last
point.
time that election, we had an election in the house, there was mumbles around the town.
Good point. Good point.
And our friends in Johnson City have already committed, is that correct?
Yes, I believe that they've already held their council, for their council meeting to approve it.
When you said there was a third entity that may possibly,
Yes, the third entity, I'm not really sure. We have to go take it. We're gonna have to take out water commissioners for it. Talk to our county attorneys, but I'm not sure that that's gonna be included or not. It really depends on my ISDs.
So it looks like from your breakdown that we're basically paying, in this estimate, we're basically paying $1,700 for the service. Is that, am I reading that? That's the last line before.
Oh, the 10%?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, that's a 10% fee by statute that we have to charge. But like, like I said, like the vendor support, that's gonna take down that 10% also.
I think it's actually cost of doing the job, it's not labor.
Yes, the cost of the election on the top is for ballots, for programming the equipment.
And the changes in legislation raise the costs more too.
Yes, so there's some changes that happened in the legislation. Now we have to have a testing board. I don't get to test my own equipment. I have to bring someone else in to test it. We have once the election is over, we have a post, election hand count audit. So, we choose certain offices and we hand count those ballots to make sure that we get the same result as, the tabulation equipment, tabulated on election night. So those are new, additions where we have to have extra staff.
Budgetary question, if we budgeted 10, and let's say we have to come up with 15,555, where are we gonna get the extra money from? What's your recommendation?
So, normally where we always get this kind of stuff pulled from is, basically turnover, usually in the PD, so there's probably additional budget there. If we didn't have it there, but I believe we do, we'll have to look at who've done payroll, but I think they've been down an officer too for most of this budget year. That's probably where we get it from. If you're only talking maybe 3 or 4,000, which I think that's the from that. But if we get down to about 11,500 or 12, we're only up about 2,000.
So you think we can find it in the budget without having
We got it.
a fund balance?
Without actually having it in front of me, we have it.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Because at this moment, we don't know for sure that Johnson City has contracted.
Correct.
Johnson City has already signed their contract in their council meeting. The issue is if they don't have anyone that runs for office,
Which would be my
they
issue
would
too.
not have to hold an election.
Oh, okay. And then we would be on the hook on that scenario for 38. That's problematic.
That would be problematic.
We'll work with you on that, especially if there's just one entity participating. We'll work on the problem.
Because all of this is going under the assumption that there's two.
Yes, and that's only an estimate. That's, I give you an estimate, that's.
I think maybe the not to exceed approach makes sense. Yeah, I'll move that we approve this not to exceed $15,555.
Well, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
And you feel comfortable with that as well, even if it did wind up, Johnson City's out and we can do it for 15,500.
If we do it for 15,500, I'm comfortable with that. If not, we'll have to come back in February, February meeting and discuss. But,
Yeah, well, that'd be after the line.
that'd be, I guess that's.
Well, I did bring my calendar, the last day is in February 13th.
February 13th is where candidate filings.
That's our candidate filing.
Okay, well then, that's when we'll know.
Also, Valentine's Day.
And I'll take this to Commissioner's Court in the next, I guess it's the first Commissioner's Court in February.
And our next council meeting is February 10th. So your next council meeting, we're not going to know anything yet. We're not going to know how many people we have, and we're not going to know how many people they have. Which would be part of special council. Yeah.
But I guess regardless of how many, it's just a matter of if they hold them. Doesn't matter how many people. Right? I mean, correct. They have elections,
Yes.
right? So I mean, in all likelihood, they're going to have an election.
Yes, it's
More than likely,
So,
unless everybody in the whole city is happy with their council.
Do any of us know what's on the ballot in Johnson City? Mayor?
No, it's the same as yours. It's
Three
not
counties.
council.
It is? Okay.
if I'm having.
I know.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to.
But I guess that's a half.
As a afterthought, yeah.
I'm comfortable with the motion that Councilmember McClung made. I just wonder, would y'all accept that from us? I mean, if
I would take it to Commissioners Court on the first, Commissioners Court in February, and they would decide that.
it hadn't been seconded, I'll second Councilmember McClung's motion.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you so much
You're
for
so
being
welcome.
here. Very
Sorry
helpful.
for all the drill. That's okay. If you don't do it all the time, you don't know what you're doing.
And I will attend that commissioner's court. So the first ones, I'll be there.
Okay, so item number 3, consideration and discussion of text law for approval of ordinance 2026-0-003, general election order providing for a holding of a general election on May 2nd, 2026 for the purpose of electing 3 council members at large. And
Quick question I've had, does this need to be amended to include the special ballot? That was approved by council.
Was wondering that same thing. Do we need to amend this to mention the, addition of the valid item, 5-cent sales tax allocation?
No,
Tim, what'd you say?
no, not now. We don't have the precise language.
Okay.
We amended on the 10th.
And amended on.
So we can accept this and then amend it.
For the public, that was the city attorney, Tim Tuggy, that's listening.
we said amend it on the 10th rather than.
Just to be clear, is Tim suggesting, Tim, you can hear me, would you be suggesting that we need to have clear ballot language in order to amend this ordinance?
Well, I don't think we have to necessarily have the precise language.
Yeah, that's what I heard. Couldn't we
Well,
just amend this to and have the sales tax referendum? Because we don't have the candidate's name on this either.
You could say a sales tax referendum, that would be okay, I guess. I was thinking, we have all sorts of issues about repealing and reimposing and et cetera, et cetera. But if you just said a generic sales tax referendum, there's no harm. There's no harm in waiting also and adding in. Yeah.
Except it's the last possible deadline, so I just get a little nervous. We've been talking about this since June of last year. So I'd certainly like to amend my motion to include generic language that three council seats and a sales tax referendum.
You're making a motion, is that right, Councilmember?
Oh, that's all right, I made the last meeting.
Yeah, but
Blended together.
they blend together. Is there anything you'd like to add to it? Is that the motion?
Yeah, we approve this ordinance as written with the addition of the language that would include a sales tax referendum for the vote.
Should be sized up by the city attorney, I assume.
Yeah.
And do we need to read this out loud to everyone?
It's on the packet online.
Okay, so we have a motion to accept this with an amendment, adding a sales tax referendum.
Edit rather than that.
Edit. And so I have a motion and a second.
Either one of those.
David.
It's high.
So really,
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Opposed, then it's passed. So we will get that stuff done, okay? Consideration, discussion, and take possible action on bid selection for construction services for North 281 expansion.
So I'm just gonna do it background. The engineer will talk here just a minute. Remember last month, I think it was actually December, we authorized staff, the city engineer to take bids, the bid opening. We did that bid opening, I think it was on the 15th, and so they did an analysis, and we're gonna talk to you tonight about the final bid, the lowest bid, and we'll talk to you about, where we go here. So, we're gonna speak with Nick. Okay, great. Nick Bose, our city.
Secretary, Mayor, Council, thanks for having us. I'm not, you'll notice probably in the documents that are in your packet, John, who you guys know well, sounds when Sunday's jumping here, so here in his stead. Like Warren mentioned, we had a public bid for this project, which you guys should also have the documents for, the construction documents for the North 281 US 31 sewer extension. The bids that we got, we received, I believe, 9 bids, which is, from my experience, pretty remarkable. That's a pretty large number of bidders for a project like this. I've seen projects that went out to bid like this and got no bidders, so 9 was a great number. We did, like Warren mentioned, we analyzed all the bids, looked at unit prices, and obviously the preference is to go with the lowest qualified bidder. AO Services was the lowest bidder with a total bid. The bid was organized into 2 pieces: a base bid, which is just the plans as is with an 8-inch wastewater extension up North US 281, and then an alternate for upsizing that 8-inch to a 10-inch instead, which will allow for future additional flows to be sent to that line. The cost difference between an 8-inch and a 10-inch is pretty marginal, so we added the 10-inch in there as an alternate. AO Services for the base bid, their total cost, proposed cost, came in at $422,045, and total for the alternate, which is just the additional amount to use a 10-inch pipe instead of 8-inch, was $19,076. So that total amount with a contingency and I guess John had a lot of the total construction cost was $485,625.50, allowing for 10% in contingencies, potential issues that might come up in construction that we can't foresee in the plans. So, yeah, or AT&T had a line that they don't let us know about. We have to coordinate that. So, we also checked references with AO Services. We got 2 really good references, both from the city of Kyle and then I think from another, there's another city that they did work for, maybe out in Abilene, that John contacted both these guys, both these entities, and they both had really good things to say about AO Services. So they were very reasonable. When change orders came up, they were able to work things out. So with that, our recommendation, I believe you have a letter here from John as well. Our recommendation is that council would award the project to AO Services and seek to enter a contract to have AO Services construct the North Wastewater Extension as shown in the plans with the 10-inch wastewater upsize.
I have one question, just in the sense of apples to apples with these other bidders. This contingency was added on, that's about 2002. Did the other base number bids, did they also add a contingency, or is that just assumed 10% contingency on whatever number document?
That's the latter is correct. That's our assumption.
So AO proposed the 441, 421. So in essence, the contingency is just a projection or a change order estimate.
Yes, it's our recommendation that council would budget that amount in order to money's available in case of just.
Comparatively,
Hopefully
the
there will
other
be no
people you have a
change.
contingency on showing after their number, right?
Correct. If the project is built and there are no change orders and everything goes completely according to plan, you expect to pay only the 440.
Understood that where that total number. Okay, thanks for that clarification.
It comes up, if it happened here, it wouldn't be the first time that a contractor has been paid a contingency amount because they billed somebody for it and somebody in the office with a checkbook and said, oh, okay, fine. So absolutely, you should not pay them a contingency if it's,
And I had requested, I talked to John to put a contingency in there because as we were looking at what the available funds would be for the Bronx Wall or other projects, I wanted to make sure that we didn't over promise and say, that there happened to be a change order. So I wanted that number in there. That was the full protection of the city. Obviously, we don't have to use that, but that will come back to either be refunded through and not have a $1.5 million CL, or we can add some things that fit. But we'll either spend the money or get it refunded. Wanted to make sure there's a little money in there just in case there are things that happen.
I appreciate that. I'm a fan of having that 10% contingency in the budget. So.
I appreciate when you check that range. The customers.
You guys have a good engineer with John. He's very thorough. Yes.
So with that, do I have a motion to accept the recommendation?
Just one more point.
Okay, excuse me, I'm sorry,
I'm
Rodney. I
slow.
just keep throwing you off.
The 441, that includes the 10-inch upgrade, is that correct?
Yes.
And I know we just spoke about this, I just want to make sure I'm clear. The contingency is built into that number, or we could potentially pay another 50,000 if we, that's what the contingency is, an additional 50, so we could go to 490. Okay. All right, that's all I wanted to know, thank you. And anybody familiar with this company? No?
Well, I've heard the company name, but that's it. Heard of it for most of it.
I bet we need them soon. Yeah, are there any other questions? I guess I'm believing that, I believe that was regularly. And most of this, I think, it's like they didn't do, they wouldn't bid, sign, same.
John might have, I don't know if you talked to them. Did you talk to them, Warren, about whether they came out or not?
No, I didn't.
It's not uncommon for contractors to do one or the other. Some contractors will come out and some contractors who have a lot of experience in that type of work will just. Yes, absolutely. I will say that the fact that they had just done a wastewater project for the city of Kyle means that they have some, local experience with certainly what ought to be a well engineered and managed project. So even though you may not have heard of them, since they have done some work here in the area, you guys.
Kyle had, did it kind of more.
I think there's, well,
Or in the topic.
they are, I think, looking at a study to. Did they already have type 1 reuse, Jerry? Kyle?
They have some limited type 1 reuse, pipe to water a golf course.
Yeah.
But they haven't expanded it to large scale.
But they are looking at a study that.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
Make a motion.
Okay,
On new business item number 4, I motion that we accept the bid that has been presented for the construction services of North 281 Service Extension as recommended by the city engineer.
I have a second. Motion and second, all those in favor? All those opposed? Oh, all those abstaining? Passes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for doing
Talk about this in consideration, discussion, take possible action on hot funds committee's recommendation for utilizing hot funds for visitors to their location.
Mayor, thank you, Mayor, Council. I'm gonna read to you from what the recommendation was from the Hot Funds Committee Chair, Elissa Barker. Dear Mayor, City Council and City staff, this letter is formally notified the City Council, the staff of the Hot Funds Committee meeting held on January 12, 2026. The committee voted 5-1 to recommend for the funding of the Blanco Visitor Center located at the old county courthouse. The recommendation for funding is $35,000 per year to be paid in quarterly in advance. This recommendation reflects the committee's determination that the Blanco Visitor Center plays a significant role in promoting tourism and supporting overnight visitation in the city of Blanco. Please feel free to contact us. And there may be people that, if Libby's on the committee, there may be people that you can talk to tonight. I will mention, so you look at you look at the request here, they requested, it was $35,000. They issued a $35,000. I'll talk a little bit about the background. Our budget is $93,000 for the entire year for the hot funds. We're thinking that we're going to get about $105,000 this year. I think last year we only got 88. This is kind of a moving target, but it's always really difficult to say exactly how much you're going to get in revenues. But what you did allow for in the budget was 93. So this would be a sizable chunk, but I think the understanding, and I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think from the top funds committee, that the committee felt that having a visitor center is very important, very vital to when people visit, where do they go? Really that sort of thing. It's like that, not trying to take all their thunder away. I think that's probably where what you're hearing.
Yeah, I understood that it's being paid quarterly.
It would be paid, that's what you're saying, it would be paid quarterly, which we have the funds to do. So you have the $93,000, you also have $35,000 in rainy day. We're hoping to get about between $100,000 and $105,000 this year in revenues, but usually the city keeps 10%, so that's kind of in line with everything. And I don't know if someone from the visitor center would like to speak tonight, but if you want to recognize somebody.
Questions? Do you have anything that would make things clearer? You don't, that's fine. Let it. Dan?
I will say a few things.
Okay.
I will say that, Hot Funds Committee appeared to work very diligently on this issue. And it was something they spent a lot of time on and, went round and round.
Yeah.
It was a heated issue, but I think in the end, a strong majority of the committee voted to approve this, and I can match their feeling of going over it. And as we had discussed this on council, it's a hard issue to make a decision on. And, but I do appreciate everything the Hot Funds Committee has done, firing that committee up and getting it going. And I would be inclined to support their decision, especially being the first decision coming. That's just kind of where I lie on it. I'm not necessarily making a motion. I want to make sure everything would like to hear if anybody else has something.
How's the visitor center been paid for the last 5, 4, 5, 6, 10 years? I really don't know.
Through Hot Funds, but through an additional channel. And from what I gathered, may stand we stand to be corrected on this, but they were operating the visitor center with less funds coming from hot funds than what it took to actually operate. The time that they have been operating it, they've been essentially helping cover some of their costs.
So we've helped cover it to a certain percentage.
And it was supposed to be covered entirely by the city's hot funds. And it-
Like I said, the chamber probably helped, they probably helped, there's probably a combination of funds, that would cover that, I don't know if it's that percentage, but we were covering, hot funds are not covering all of that.
Is that the majority of it?
Yes, and it was the intention for hot funds to cover it.
And then the new committee meet with Melissa that just voted on, they
They-
recommended.
They recommended that it continue.
I will say the budget that they came up with was about $40,000, so they're still paying about $5,000 a year expenses. Drop from roughly 40,000, 35.
So they'll still be covered.
They're still covering what many think that should be the city's responsibility.
Just out of curiosity, what was you said it was a big debate and I see one person voted against. What was
From what I understand, I don't want to speak for that committee member, but from what I understand, that committee member just felt like that was too large of a piece of the entire hot funds coming in. It wasn't that they were against the visitor center or helping pay for it. Amount. That was, I believe, was the.
Okay, thank you.
From the discussion you set in on, do you foresee any tweaking to the application in the future?
As far as their application or the application in general?
The application in general.
In general, no. I mean,
because it doesn't, as far as I know, it doesn't ask for any kind of financial health baseline from the entity that's supplied. Is that right?
I would have to. That's one of the issues that the Hot Funds Committee has been going over, and I have not been privy to the final draft of the application that we come up with. And as far as I know, the last meeting they had, they were still finalized. That's a good question. I don't have an answer for that.
And within the hot funds committee, there is a question on how much, and I think that one member wanted to see more of the health of the applicants coming in and wanted to see more of their books. I think there's more of a discussion on how much the hot funds committee and the city needs to know about individual private companies' health, financial health. And so that, I think there was a big discussion on that, and the majority of the members felt that the information provided was enough. I think that member probably not.
I think that if you were getting funds from another entity for the same thing that you're asking for hot funds, that was a reasonable ask, but not open to it.
I wouldn't want to either. No, the city does ask you anyway.
So you feel,
That was the way I took it.
you feel maybe some of the concerns of that committee member may have been not out of line, I don't want to use that, but more, you wanted more than what we should require from the applicants.
I think he wanted more than what most of the people in the committee and what I as administrator would ask for. I'll put it.
I guess the concern would be, that the funds coming in have decreased, and like this last year, we were asked for more than $1 million. So, it's possible you could have a situation where you actually have to pick and choose.
Yeah.
And that might be information that would be helpful in that.
And
But
you know what?
that's for the committee to
And
look
that
at.
will be the committee's.
Yeah, I agree. I'll let them, I'll be curious where they come out.
Yeah, that's what.
I'll make one comment. I agree with you completely, especially if you're trying to make a choice between two applicants. It would be inappropriate for the city to ask for any financials of a private company that would then be subject to public information requests. So things like what are the names of the employees and what are their hourly rates and that was mentioned as a potential ask. It's not of any business that, a private business that would give more, you know, we asked to give equal to or more than they would give a bank to get a loan, for example. And they don't want to be subject to public information requests by other competitors.
Well, I don't have any frame of reference, but these are tax dollars, not bankable, but anyway.
Well, no, it's asked for, I'm just saying, you have to, as a private business, you have, if you want a loan, you have to be open books with the bank. But being open books for the entire public and your competitors is moving out of line in money business.
Any more comments or questions? Or I hear a motion? Do I hear a motion?
Yeah,
It's a motion?
New business item 5, I move that we could approve the community's recommendation to utilize hot funds this center as presented.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor? All opposed? Passes unanimously. Now, with that, Warren, we're going to the workshop,
Yes, ma'am.
what everyone's scheduled.
So we're going to the workshop, and I think the item that you tabled, old business number 1, will deal with that in executive session, come back out.
Come back.
With the question. But for now, we're at the workshop.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. What a gentleman. You guys take lessons.
You're asking, thank you all very much. Have a good evening.
Okay.
Mayor, council, we'll get started with this. My presentation will take about maybe 12 or 13 minutes, and then we can ask questions. And this is really more of an introductory to looking at utility rates. There's going to be 2 things we're going to look at. We're going to look at an overall increase across the board that is necessary. We'll talk about that, and then we'll also talk about the secondary issue, which is looking at a larger increase for those outside the city and the reasons for that, and kind of what we're looking on that. This is more of a, this is bring this up to you, look at the concept. The overall rate increase, I think we'll need to deal with sooner. Hopefully the larger increase on the people outside the city that we have customers, that we could probably do that either later time or with looking at the budget. So with that said, we'll go ahead and get started. The enterprise fund budget for the year ending 26. The proposed revenue is $2 million, $2,767,157, with the expenses being $2.62 million. And that, so you as a council had approved the proposed savings of $145,867. In the enterprise fund, it's really hard to do. Revenues are really hard to predict. Expenses are a little harder in enterprise and general fund because of some things that we'll talk about. So having said that, the rainy day fund right now as it stands is at about $100,000. I think when we've spoken this summer, when we were looking at the budget, it was at 105, approximately $100,000. We should be at 3 months of operating budget, which would be 655, 322. We've never, well, I would say never. The time I've been here, we've never had that. To kind of compare, general fund rainy day fund is right now at $482,000, which is the most it's been in 4 years. It should be 547 if you look at the actual percentage. When we talk about 3 months of operating budget, that's basically so that if you got no money, you actually have that much to be able to operate. So let's talk about the previous increases. After almost 5 years without a substantial increase in the utility rates, CMAX came up with a 20% rate order across the board with an additional $16 availability fee
for those customers outside the city not paying taxes. That was about August of 23, the tax of September. And then the only other increase we've had since then, which is not a real increase, it's more of it's a revenue increase, is new meters were installed, which added about 10% more revenue. We were really hoping for an additional 20% more revenue. It ended up only being 10%. There may be some reasons about that. We'll talk about that in a minute. PUC paid for a rate study in 2022 from Philip Givens with Superior Management, and he recommended a 35% increase. I'd asked him if we could look at a graduated scale, so instead of just saying 35, it would be 15 the first year, and he said, well, you only paid for just the basic rate study. He suggested 35 for a lot of different reasons. We did a rate order of 20%. I think the hope was that we would look at a 4 to 5% increase every year and just have that written into the ordinance. For political reasons, for maybe reasons of affordability, the previous council didn't do that, and I didn't come to you until now for this rate increase. So there's some shared responsibility on that. So shortfalls in profitability for possible reasons. There's a 5% increase in operations budget annually. There are 3 to 4% increases in buying water from our vendors, Texas Water. They have a rate schedule. I'm going to send it to you, but for habits, it ends up being between 3 and 4%. The 5% is Infomar. There's some decrease in usage with the stage 3 and stage 4 restrictions. And what I will say is, because I think most people here believe in water conservation, and I know some more than others, it's great. We need conservation, but it's not good for the pocketbook. I mean, because we make money off of sales of product, and we're getting less because yes, ma'am. But it's not good for the pocketbook for conservation. So that's part of what has decreased. So the disruptions. The reason why we're here now, and we need to talk about this, is operational bills that have come in before we've had money. So we've known that we have $100,000 in reserves. We know that we have enough to cover every month, except, and Jose can explain this a little better, but except we have operational expenses that we have to pay our operator that have come in before we've gotten to pay. So for example, the month of January, we actually didn't have money. We had it like it was coming, but it wasn't physically in our bank account. So we had to take about $150,000 out of general operations, put it into the account, then we paid it, then we got paid back, and then we had to pay ourselves back. And every time we have to do that, I'm sure you have to do an entry, and that has to explain to the auditors. And so we want to avoid those kind of disruptions.
Putting it into enterprise?
We had to take money from basically the general operating budget, put in the enterprise fund. Once we got paid by, because we're about a month and a half behind in billing. That's how the billing works. When you pay your month's bill, it actually from the month before. So when you're doing that, we get paid after we have to pay our vendors. So that created, I call it, a disruption. Basically, we got caught not having $100,000.
It's just a timing issue.
It's not an issue.
But we have replaced the funds back. We already implemented that.
But I suspect that's going to happen every few months if we don't.
Yeah, it could potentially happen. Again, it's a timing. Bills are due at the very end of the month, but usually the 31st, 30th, the last day of the month. And those funds don't trickle in until about the 10th. Anywhere from the 5th to the 10th. So there's a little bit of a timing, but we've got to pay our vendors, make sure we're good with our vendors. So that just creates a little bit of a timing issue.
Has there been programs about?
Okay.
Has there ever been programs about?
Probably not, but it's been right around that. Usually it's the Infomart bill that's the one that's the big.
So let me answer
You're
one
talking about the fund balance itself in the enterprise.
Yeah, I mean, where they had to go and.
So the fund balance of 2021, the rainy day fund we had in enterprise, basically before we hired our current operator, was at about $500,000. And so, I mean, it is what it is. It was probably sitting at about $500,000 when I first got here. Well, but we were still running a deficit, but our operator and other costs and additional costs have been making those funds go small. So we have to do something, and we either have to save money or you have to raise revenues. So next year we will incur additional operational cost increases, and we'll have some additional expenses on the maintenance staff, things like fixing pumps and those sort of things. So let's talk about our current bill, so you actually know what we're actually charging residents. Rate approved in August 2023 is basically $10.49 per 1,000 gallons. So I'm going to assume that the average customer uses 3,000 gallons. I use much more, but anyway, 3,000 gallons. And so the availability fee for someone outside the city is $16.12. We'll talk about how we're going to increase, we may increase that. But the availability fee, and when I talk about availability fee, that basically is the cost to provide the product, the water, to somebody, and that's what that is. Before you get a drop of water, the availability fee is what each person's share of the cost of infrastructure.
Quick question on that. So outside of the city limits, it's the $16.12 availability fee.
On top,
Plus a 50% greater price per 1,000 gallons.
no,
The 50% is no longer built into the.
no, it's $10.49. It's $10.49 for 1,000 gallons, and it's going to be it's $16.12 on top of the $41.79 for the 5/8 inch tap and the sewer base fee of $32.20.
So is this whole page outside the city limits?
This is for inside the city limit.
Okay,
Inside, so what you're talking about is
the only current additional charge from outside the city limits is $16.12.
yes, sir. So it's 131, let's say 3,000 gallons, 131 fee for single family home, a 5/8 inch tap,
Inside the city
on
limits.
top, and then the 16.12 so the outside the city.
And it used to be 50% more this 1,000 gallons.
OJ changed the rate order, I think he approved in 23, seen that. And then this does not include the garbage fee. Garbage is $14.58 or something like that. We're at almost 13 of our costs, and that's getting skinnier too, but we pay $14 something a month for garbage. So that,
$14.50.
yes, sir. You're correct. You were correct. Okay. So solutions. So a 5% increase over 1,130 users across the board stabilize the enterprise fund. It provides about $100,000 in additional revenues annually. I know if you have to do the math, it's a little bit more, but I think you also have to realize that if you do a 5% increase, it will be a little more conservation, things like that. So be conservative about it, it's about 100,000. We need to get that done sometime in February or March to stabilize the system. It would help the cash flow. So let's talk about the solutions. So we're looking at, and I'm just going to throw this number out, it's based on an actual number. Looking at a possible increase for users outside the city of 60%.
Is that for the water itself or just the cost of $12, 60%?
I think how you'd fashion it is that you would 60% increase on the water availability.
Not just on that only?
Well, you do 60% on.
I'd be interested in seeing I don't mean to put you on that rabbit hole, but I'd be interested in seeing the difference from outside the city limits of just the availability fee or a higher rate per gallon of water. And so are we giving away, we used to get 50% more per gallon. Now we're just doing an availability fee. So I'd like to compare those two and see how much have we left on the table or the gain from only availability fee, or do we want to do both for those outside the city limits?
And I need to point of clarification.
Sure.
So when we talk about a proposed 5% across the board increase, is that 5% of the availability fee? Is that 5% of as well the use fee, or is it 5% of everything?
5% would be 5% of everything.
So the use fee would go up from the 1049 per thousand gallons.
Yes, sir.
Okay, it's 5%.
Yeah, it's gonna be 5% of everything.
And so then it would be
It's 60% of those
Your
outside
sewer
the
would be
city.
85%,
What's that?
your sewer would be 85% rather than 80.
No, it's still sewer's still 80% of the water. So this is what happens. We don't meter sewer. We only meter water. The idea is that 20% goes to, I don't know, it could be leaks, it could be water in your lawn, it could be different things. You calculate 80% of the sewer. So for example, if you did a 5% increase of water and that ended up getting you X amount of dollars, it still is, we still use 80% on sewer, but that would also increase 5%.
Truly 5% increase.
It's truly a 5% increase. That would be the easiest way to do it.
And this, when you said you're talking about just in city, the 5%.
It would be 5% for anybody inside the city and anybody outside the city. The second increase we're going to talk about, you're probably going to do after you do this 5% increase. So you'll have a 5% increase for everyone, and then the 60% will be on top of that. Well, it could be, and I'm going to talk about why the number is 60%, because we didn't pull it out of thin air.
That's $1.5 million of our borrowed money.
Well,
Almost 2.5.
2.5 million.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we got.
Does the state put caps on this, on how much you can go up?
It's very generous.
they're very, this would actually, I've run this by Tim, and I've run this by our yes, compared, and they said there's no issue. Run this by CMAP, there's no issue. Let me go through this, and then we can, I'll explain how we get it. Okay. 60% increase would be $103,000 to pay the debt service. So this is what the thought would be. You would take the debt service is basically $3.1 million. And how you did that is the Cielo line is $2.5 million, and the amount of users we have outside the city, I think I had it in a different slide, I think it was 149 people. Those folks represent 14% of the people that we serve. So those folks would be responsible for the $3.1 million. 3.5 is the Cielo line, and the $600,000 is 14% of how much we are paying for the water treatment plant. That will be online April 1st. Not on whatever this is. Okay, so, but when we talk about moving the debt service, right now, this is what I need you to understand. Right now, we have a debt service that is $2.5 million for the Cielo line that we already have the cash, or at least partial amount of the cash sitting in our account, ready to start working on the project, which will get started in February. I mean, we're doing design work now. The issue is that this money is sitting there, and the people that are paying for the Cielo line are actually people inside the city. It's not the people in Cielo or outside of the city, because this is INS, interest and sinking, ad valorem taxes that only people in the city pay. The idea is if you do the 60% increase, but basically you do that 60% increase, we're not funding our enterprise. We're taking that debt out of INS and putting in our enterprise, which would then, at least temporarily, lower taxes to the people, to the resident.
In essence, so the city, people in the city limits are not paying for the Cielo Springs water repairs and upgrades.
Correct. And that would be the theory of doing it. Now, I'm not saying you have to do all that at once and shock people, which could, or you could do 30% now, 30% later, but that's how we came up with 3.1 million. So $600,000
that we don't do, just continues to increase the property tax. for our citizens.
Yes, sir.
And the people who are outside of the city get a free ride on that cost, but our citizens don't.
That's correct. And if we do a 60%, I'll tell you what we won't do. If we do a 60% increase on the users outside the city, my opinion, not legally, but my opinion is that we should move that debt service. We don't want to double dip, okay? We want to provide tax relief or remember when we looked at the bond tranche of $16.5 million, we agreed that we would be at 5% assessed value. That would give you additional cap room, but basically start using that more and actually give you below. Basically, right now, it would get you below the cap to either spend or to have low taxes. Either way. All right. So let's talk about the debt service. Debt service are certificates of obligation bonds that are taken out and pay for the interest of city and add more taxes. Who pays? Only people inside the city. We just talked about that. What is the $3.1 million debt service? It is $2.5 million for Cielo line, and it is a portion of 14% number of the customers not in the city of the water plant construction. That is what the $3.1 million debt service is. Why should the debt service be moved? I've mentioned that moving the debt service from INS to enterprise. Ostensibly, the city residents should not be required to pay for infrastructure that does not serve citizens. The increase of 60% would reflect the true cost of providing water to residents. The customers outside the city almost exclusively get water and not sewer services. I think I sent this to you not too long ago. There's I got from HR Green, there was a map that showed all these dots and showed who had water, who had sewer, and nobody that had water outside the city, maybe one or two had sewer, but basically we're just talking about water. So the timing of the increases. Increases needed immediately to avoid pay disruptions. Both increases amount to a little more than $200,000 in increased revenues annually, though it would be about $100,000 relieving the enterprise fund and $100,000 relieving the city INS fund, which I can talk about. It would either lower taxes at least for a year, or it would give you a little bit more room to start spending that bond tranche sooner. It would do either. That's up to council. 5% increase across the board should be adopted in the spring of 26. The increase in customers outside the city could be installed as part of the annual budget. Looking at all of the enterprise fund issues should be part of the budget process. And I will mention, one of the things that we're going to talk about in the next few meetings is we're also looking at other ways to earn money, revenue, things like the JBSA, the exit project, or ways to reduce our operating costs. So if we look at, we will talk about both things, not just one. I think we've talked a little bit about the benefits of moving to INS. So the one thing I haven't done a lot of analysis, but a couple of council members asked me to do, and we'll have to provide more of this when we can, is your question was, how do we stack up right now? And I'll have to provide this to you later, but I will tell you there. How do we stand up with other entities? And I want to do a more, actually provide you better information. But there are two places I looked at, and there's some others where we're in line with what other people are charging. Bulverde right now we charge $130 for water and sewer for someone that's 3,000 gallons. That does not include trash. Bulverde is at 148, because Bulverde, as you know, is exclusively provided by Texas Water.
Yeah.
I looked at Kyle. Kyle is really interesting. They're $110, we're $130. They're $110 for their regular customers, but people outside the city, when you look at that math, it's $188. And so they really, that last thing they did about 6 months ago, they really added. And there are some other places where the water is lower, and I'll provide all of that to you next month or so. But remember, we're surface water. A lot of these folks that have well water, it's less expensive. So that's where we're at right now, and I think I've done a lot of talking.
I have a question if I could.
Yeah.
On your timing of the increases, you indicate 5% increase should be adopted in the spring, and install the outside the city as part of the annual budget. Why wouldn't we do them both at the same time?
So,
Project.
well, then, so let me first of all let you know this. I wanted full transparency. I wanted to kind of kind of bounce some ideas off the mayor and Mayor Pro Tem. We've been talking about timing, and you can do it all together, but I think the 5% is easier to justify and easier, it's an easier swing, but that's something that we really do need to leave. That's something I'd like to do now. If you're willing to, the next couple of months, look at the whole thing and deal with it now, that would be fine. But I think one of the suggestions, at least from the pro tem and from the mayor, was maybe we look at immediate relief now, and then we really have this part of our budget process. Like we're going to do the capital improvements every year. OJ with his group is going to present you information as part of the budget process. This might be something we do. Now, I think Kellyanne mentioned that not that we have to follow Johnson City, but I tried to do this 3 years ago and I was told no. Johnson City just takes a percentage that they mirror.
They have it written into their ordinance where they have an automatic match to the increase of the supplier. So like if the water rates, like you were saying, it just goes up automatically. It doesn't have to go to council every time.
The council in 2023 did not want to do that. They did not want that written into City One.
One comment.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
They're their own
I
supplier.
would imagine their water is a lot cheaper now.
Their water, but they do it for trash services as
Their
well.
water-
Anything that they have, like, anything that they have increased, they just match it so that it's not, it doesn't seem like it's done purposely to get more. It's just this kind of incremental, whatever. The other
Say,
rates.
well, your trash bill went up, you need to go blame Waste Management, not me.
Speaking of trash, we're not talking about increasing the trash fee by 5%, because it is part of the bill. That would be
No.
excluded.
We're not talking, I mean, you could as a council want to do this. I'm going to explain.
That seems like a value. I'd like to keep that where it is.
Right. And
It pays for itself. We're
it
not.
pays for itself.
Yeah.
At some point, it will get closer. So at one time, we were paying $11.50, and then we were always charging $14.51, and now I think the gap's starting to close.
So we've got
It's like
3 more years in that contract.
I think we got, yeah, and we just approved it. It's not critical. It's not necessary right now, to even look at raising, trash. It is critical to look at raising utilities. I'd rather just focus on utilities.
And if we could, I'd like to go back to the timing logic. I understand that you said it could price duties in a couple of different ways, but it seems like if we're gonna ask our citizens to take on a 5% hit, it seems like it'd be easier to do it, and we're also gonna be not taking the INS fund down because the people outside of the city are gonna be paying for what you've been covering all this time. That seems like an easier sell, and to do the second part on that, if we're gonna avoid recouping what we need to recoup from the people outside of the city, if we're gonna piss off one group or the other, let's piss off those guys. They're outside of the city, and we're here to represent the citizens.
Right.
So I'm just not sure I understand why we would do them both at the same time.
Well, and I was one of the ones that, when we asked, was emailing with us and chatting and feedback that I gave, which, I mean, that's a good point, but the feedback that I gave was, so we're 4 months into the budget year, and we just passed the balanced budget with no talk of an increase. And so now we're 4 months in and talking about a large increase. To me, it feels like
It seems like it's offset by the interest and.
well, and so that was something else that's wasn't part of the original conversations when we got.
Oh, I can see that.
But so it seemed like, hey, we passed this budget 4 months in, it's like, oh, we're gonna raise your rates now all of a sudden. So I was saying, and of course, life happens, things change, and sometimes you have to make adjustments. So that's where I was saying I would be open to any of the discussions, but at the time of the conversation, I said a smaller adjustment now and a larger discussion and even a philosophy statement on how are we going to do this going forward That's part of the budgeting.
I'm not sure why we'd leave the people outside of the city off the hook.
Right. Well,
You know, why we're paying to our citizens, but don't want to punish them.
But they are
And then
getting
part of the
same
conversation.
5% increase, right? That's what's been proposed.
5% will be for everyone. The only reason on my end, I mean, council, the mayor pro tem said good points. It's just harder to prove up and really tighten down, even a 60% increase. Because, you know, when I look at Kyle and I look at other people who've done increases, they did a whole, you know, budget, this is why, a full justification. 5% is much easier because Mark's doing 5% increase. I think we have a 4% increase from our water provider, Texas Water. It's just easy to say. We've got to have a
I don't see the
5%.
logic on that, but perhaps we could split the difference and let the citizens know that we're doing a study. We know how we can remove some of that interest and simply cover this, which could keep it sustained. And that also gives the people outside of the city using city water a heads up that maybe it'll be next budget year, or maybe it'll be as soon as the study is finished.
What's the timing on notice? Like if like whenever it's decided if we were to increase a rate, regardless, inside, outside, whatever. Is there any requirement for notice?
I'm gonna have-
Citizens or the users, or they just see it on the next bill?
No, I think Tim, I think it's 30 days, is that correct? That's something we can look into.
And
I don't know off the top of my head. It's at least 30 days. I think there may be another period required, but at least 30 days.
And I'm curious how we rolled out the $16 surcharge outside the city and how that was received. Yeah, I can imagine how it was received, but I was just wondering how much feedback did we get? There was a lot of that.
Yeah.
I was here, but I don't recall.
So I don't recall either. This was the thing, that the 20% total increase on the rate order was what I remember being a really big step. 4 years previously, it had not had an increase, and so we were running a deficit. But I do know that we had Superior Management requested 35. We talked to CMAC, and we talked to council, and talked to 17. But the rate order had to be more like 20%. And after that, several council members had told me, I don't have an appetite for doing things for a couple of years, which is why we're here. As far as the $16 though, that, and then the next time we have this discussion, we'll have OJ here, because OJ actually put together the rate order with CMAC and really understands that part of the financials better than me. But I don't remember there being a lot of pushback on $16. But although total 20%, of course, residents weren't happy about 20%.
Yeah. And that was some of the other initial conversation. It's like the 5% is probably not where it ultimately needs to be. That's what I was saying. Like we need to, if it's my opinion, if it's bigger changes, but inside or outside, like we need to have a plan. What is it? What's the notice? All that kind of stuff. So that's where I think that comes.
So I'd like to say a few things. I want us to remember that the average resident in Blanco is paying $75 before they do the draw.
Yes.
Right? They have their tap turned off, and they're gonna be charged $75 for the privilege of being on our water line. And that is a lot. It is a lot. And I just.
How's it
75. That's our availability fee, and our bills are not transparent. And it is difficult to ascertain from your bill what is the availability fee and what you're paying. So I fall into the category he talked about. My bill is $130.94 for December. So it says I use $64 in water, $64.57. I didn't. My usage fee was actually $40. So that's part of the availability fee that's built in there. And then the sewage is the same way. Actually. So at any rate, I mean, our billing is not transparent. People cannot see actually what they're being charged. So that's an issue, but I digress on that.
I've had that issue since these bills came out.
So this is significant. I mean, this is residents in Blanco are using water to drink intubated. It is life-sustaining. This is a health issue. The one thing I think we should look at that hasn't been brought up, was brought up previously, and I was at the table, and I agreed to our current structure, and I might have some regret about it. You know, we don't charge anything more to our commercial or our industrial users. And, you know, there's an argument to be made that the residents of Blanco are also in some ways subsidizing those folks. I don't know, I can bring specifics up, but don't do that. But generally, I think the argument for having a more complex structure, which other cities have, is that those folks have remedies at their disposal to offset these increases. But my retired neighbor next door does not. What she's got is set. And, you know, it's striking to me that in the summer, when I'm cooling a house here in Texas, my water can be just as much as my electric bill.
So Councilmember.
And I don't water the yard.
So that's the reason to have this meeting now and start having discussions, because if you say we need to look at commercial users, then we'll start looking at that. There still probably will have to be some kind of annual, you know, increase because everything goes up. But I do agree that we should look at maybe commercial users and industrial users should pick up a higher percent. I don't have a problem looking into that. And so that's probably something where we're not going to be ready in February, but March to kind of look at some of those things, come back to you. Plus, something that you're probably thinking, we are on the higher side of, not super high, we're not the highest, but we're on the higher side of what we charge people. That's true. I can find some that charge more, but there's more that charge less. And so we can look at the structure. I think that's a good point.
I mean, because if you fall into this average user, I mean, there's not much you can do to pull this bill down, because most of it's baked in. You're paying it. I mean, you know,
4179 and 3220 was
I
that?
believe maybe having some more complex discussions. I agree with Councilman Farrell on this. We need to look at the impact. Because, again, I don't want to beat that horse on here, but if there was any study that $60.12 for those outside the city replace a 50% increase that we were charging in this per gallon, that just went away. So I would recommend, we're going to look at doing commercial businesses differently under certain circumstances, over a certain use or whatever. Why wouldn't we also raise the per gallon rate out of the city and not have our citizens just bear all that brunt and subsidize the commercial users and subsidize the people that are outside of the city?
I don't know exactly how we do it, but I agree with you, Councilmember. Absolutely. We've got to defray these costs. The folks outside of town have to pay them for sure. No doubt about it.
So they're getting police services and we're getting all these other trash.
And it's not to demonize them.
No, not at all.
They're our neighbors and our friends, and there's good folks, and there's retired people on fixed incomes out there too. But the bottom line is the citizens in town are paying to upkeep this infrastructure with their city taxes, and the folks out of town.
Well, that's the thing, yes, so and I agree with all that, so that's where I think we do need to look. I don't know what the answer is yet, but we do have to change something, because not only the contracts that the city's paying have built-in escalations, right? And if we're not changing what we're charging, then that math doesn't math. And then the debt that we've already talked about that citizens are covering for outside of town. So like, we've got to come, whether it's structured here, I don't know what the answer is yet, but obviously something has to be.
So all I can do is look at what I heard tonight, look at the structure that we're dealing with. I'm not going to have that to you next month, but I will have to you next month a discussion about our operational budget, which will form a separate issue in the rates, because that's part of what is fueling the operational budget, and that increase is what's fueling this. So I don't want to get into more than that, but we will need to talk next month about the operational budget. So I'm looking at some cost measures.
And one more thing I want to say, sure. And I absolutely understand what you're saying. It's a very pragmatic viewpoint, but it is such a kick in the teeth when you tell people to conserve. Folks in this town do. They do. Whether it's because they're conservationists or they're just watching their wallet. And then you tell them, you serve so much, we're gonna charge you even more. Just freaking sucks. I hate it. It's insulting. So, yes, sir. I just want to say that for the record.
The last rate increase was when? What year?
2023. Yeah.
2023.
Is this an open, or is the public allowed to
If the
like
mayor,
submit questions? I didn't know when you say it's a workshop, I don't know if that means it's just a
Yeah.
workshop for council or if it's a workshop for
I
city.
think you can raise your hand if you've got time.
Okay, well, you're here first.
Yeah, I'm getting antsy.
could you tell us who you are?
I'm Mary Ann Kramer.
Okay.
She's on her website.
And yeah, which, a lot of that, by the way, I meant to say earlier, I think some of the information you look for is probably in there, but it's so terrible. Who could find it? I can't find it.
Well,
So I
like
agree
you
with
said,
you.
it's not transparent with this when it comes to the bill. Now, I'm giving a little history of myself and maybe I'm doing more than I should. But I worked 10 years at WCID 17. I'm currently at City of Austin Water. I suggest that a wider view of what's out there and who's charging what, because WCID has different
Can you tell us what that
water control improvement district. It's in Lakeway area.
Okay.
So they have the area from 71 all the way to, I think it's like 2222, ranch area, that kind of stuff. So they have certain areas that they charge a base fee for that area, and those fees, because growth should pay for itself.
It doesn't.
Well, that's what the district goal was, and it worked. So those that were not annexed into the city got another fee, out of city fee. So, looking at the complexity, like you said, of the different fees that every water district or within, say 50 miles from here, whether it be big or small, what those charges are, I think that could help in putting accountability on those that are outside the city jurisdiction of carrying their own weight, so to speak, and allowing those that are here in town to have a minimum increase because of, being the fact that we're already here.
Are you a resident?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. If I wasn't, I'd still probably say the same thing. And I'd be killing myself for doing that. But I just think that there's different ways of having the increase so that the outside customers are paying for themselves or helping to pay for themselves for their area. So, and I'd be willing to help in a volunteer basis, but, I'm just saying. In the
How long have
research
you
part
lived
of
in
it.
this town?
I've lived here, it's going on 3 years.
Oh, they haven't found you yet?
I've
Done
lived-
for now.
It's not hiding anymore.
But, yes, it is.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, you just said a mouthful. You said that we have a contract with a water company that has a percentage that's built into it. That is a mouthful for what has to be looked at. We want to be able to turn on our water and get water. And we know we're gonna pay for it.
And just an addition, I used to live in Wimberley, their base fee is $125 before you turn on the water.
Is that right? Thank you for telling me
Yes,
that. Okay.
$125. So, that's why I said if they're in their aqua. And there's also a portion of Wimberley that's under a different, water company. And it's, so, they're not,
We don't have Wimberley, but that's good enough.
I don't have
and-
that data for you next time.
But a lot of those homes in Wimberley also have grinder pumps, so, there's a base fee for that, because you're responsible for caring for your own grinder pump. So, we don't have that here, which is a good thing too.
Okay, so not speaking, for
I know,
the
okay.
just talking for myself as a citizen, and I no longer pay water bills, because now I live outside of the city limits, and I live in the county. But when I did pay the city bill, I was shocked at how expensive it was. It was the most I've ever paid any place I've ever lived. And the rate in the bill is completely opaque, doesn't make any sense. I think some of the questions, and it would vary a lot. Like it would really, and I mean, and I knew some of that time, it was probably because my landlord at the time was coming over and was taking water and I was paying for it because there was only one meter at that time, but I resolved that on my end. But I think that if you could find ways like what you were talking about,
Marianne.
like Marianne was talking about, how maybe if you did within the service area, tiers of people, where this core group of people who utilize the most of the services and are the people who, are your main city people, they pay X rate. Your people that are sort of this outer area pay this other rate, and then the people that are the furthest out pay a different rate. Maybe you do it geographically, maybe you do it by use of services. I think adding into that commercial users, we know that there's at least 3 large users of water in this community. I don't think that they should pay the same rate as everybody else, especially if some of their use is then also impacting their infrastructure at a higher impact. If we're looking at like how sewer is like, what is it, 50%? If that's what they need, because that's flowing back out through the system, right? So if they're producing more waste, they're harder on the system than just your average household. So there should be some sort of like accommodation for that. I also think that maybe it would be nice to suggest to citizens, you have some agency in this. If you are conserving and if you install conservation methods, if you want to do some rainwater, city would have to inspect it. So then that's work for the city to do. You want to install low flush toilets, low use shower heads, all of those things that maybe you can somehow give residents some kind of break so they don't feel like they don't have any way to change it other than like, don't use as much, but we're still going to charge you as much. Because I do agree. I think that it doesn't feel good for people.
It's almost to the point where this is the baseline. I mean, if you use any water at all, this is what your bill's going to be.
I think if the commercial companies, definitely, there should be a commercial rate, which is different than the residential rate. I think also the use of water should be in tiers so that those that are using a bunch of water are going in different tiers based on that level, right?
As your use
So
rise,
some of the positive is that a residential that stays under 3,000, they're gonna stay, they're gonna have that lower rate. So it just it's gonna make it difficult if there is a water leak. Water loss refund, adjustment.
We used to have the little cards that with the bills.
I remember that.
And yes, I understood them.
Well, we're gonna have to look at that. One thing I will say, I didn't include the whole thing in there. I was trying to make it a little bit easier to look at, but if you look at the water ordinance, the base fee gets larger or if you have a 1-inch tap or a 1.5-inch tap. So, but
that's a pretty nominal, right? A bucket, isn't it?
Well,
there's different commercial costs, but it's primarily for the initial setup of an
no, but
account.
it's a tap fee. So if you look at it, I think, and I didn't include it in here, but I believe the 1-inch, I think it's another $30. So it's things like that. But the rate is the same. So you could look at in the old one, it was the commercial rate.
Yes, you're right.
And I know there's not a representative of CMAC here, and I was around then, and they decided that this standard across the board rate was the way to go, and maybe the easiest path forward.
Yes, sir.
And I agreed to it. I just don't know if I feel that way anymore.
Well, you gotta remember too, we just swapped all the meters out. That went from a mechanical water meter, and I get what you're saying when your water bill would be a $50 swing, and I get it with a mechanical pump. You've seen in videos where you can barely turn the water on in a 5-gallon bucket and capture 5 gallons of water for free because your meter's not spinning. Now we're going to digital. And I think it's a sucker shit for me too, share, whatever. But, you know, so we're barely 6-8 months into these new meters, right? And yeah, the billing, trying to read what you're actually paying for sucks. Yeah.
If you have to,
You know,
have to reverse engineer the math, and I did it today, but even now, I'm like, how did I do that? It's here, but you know.
I mean, it's taking an adjustment for me to get used to the way the analog meters are reading now.
The digital ones.
The digital versus the old mechanical style, you know.
I think out loud for a minute.
Do we have hand meter readers or is it,
Not anymore.
it's all
No.
digital?
No,
It's a computer, right?
It's not digital.
It's the AMI, right?
It's AMR.
AMR.
All right, I'm gonna think out loud here with you guys. Here's some of the things that I think about when I think about this. I thought it was interesting. We mentioned, difference in rates, commercial compared to residential, and I just wanted to let you know that this was something that I actually put some pretty deep research into when we first started looking at water rate increase of 23 and also the budget season. That was something I thought about because obviously, 10% of our water customers use 90% of our water. That's one little stat here. But as I looked into it, across the board in the state of Texas, as a commercial user goes up and uses more water, there's actually a trend where they pay less per gallon. And that's kind of a standard thing in Texas, which I thought was really odd. I thought, the more water you use, you're a bigger weight on the system, you should be paying more. Believe it or not, if you go look across the state and go to all these different water companies, technically most water customers, the highest usage customers, are paying less per gallon for their water than the lowest. I know. It's odd, but I'm just saying.
Closer to the residential.
Yeah, I'm letting you know that that's something that if we research it, you look into it, you will find that to be true. Okay. The other thing is as I'm thinking about these two different, obviously we got two separate issues here. We got the rate increase that would go across the board and a rate increase for customers outside of the city. Two very specific reasons. One, the rate increase across the board is to help our operational costs. Rate increase outside the city is to help cover the INS and keep our taxpayers inside the city from having to pay for repairs outside the city. When I look at this, in my mind, I think, why would we not pass them both? I would absolutely, if we were going to pass this, I would want to pass both immediately as fast as possible. One, because they're both equally important issues. One, we have to keep our water division solid. We cannot be losing money. Second thing is that our residents within inside the city cannot be paying for our debt service to fix crap outside the city. Or get a problem in the first place. That second thing is that is completely illegal. To pass that cost on to the customers and which are actually causing that increase, that's legal. I do think when we go to vote on that, if it gets voted on or passed, it still needs to remain separate. This is the reason why I think so. Is I think the 5% rate increase across the board, most people are going to accept and understand that sucks, but the city of Blanco cannot give water away, cannot give services. The 60% increase outside the city limits, although legal, and we have every right to do so, I feel there's a chance that we might encounter a legal opposition to that. There may be some folks outside the city that legally challenge them. If they do, Tim would have to correct me if I'm wrong on this. I think there's a possibility that if somebody legally challenged that 60% increase, it would temporarily put a stay on that. We would not be allowed to charge that 60% increase until it became legally resolved. If the two items were tied together, and we were to get a legal opposition on a 60% raise, I would hate to see that the 5% increase that we do need across the board be held up because somebody challenged 60%. I think those two items do need to stay separate as far as legality and paper is concerned and as far as votes are concerned. But I do think both are equally important and need to be thought about putting in immediately. I mean, as soon as possible. One and main reason, the biggest thing is that debt service that we are paying for right now, Father. We are currently paying
Yes, sir.
debt service
We
on
are,
that CO
we are paying that
2024.
service on.
Yeah. So our residents are currently paying the bill for those repairs. So that's where I would like to, I'd like to rush that one. But I mean, at the same time, I want it to be right with the reason. And I do think they need to remain separate for
I
complications.
think that's well said. And one amendment to what you just said, if we think of 60% outside, I agree it should be a separate vote, even if it's not delayed vote. But it might be a safer thing to look at that 50% increase in their water rate, which we have precedent for decades. And then we just took that away and just we're satisfied with $16, no matter how much water.
You know, the question mark there is the interesting, too bad we don't have somebody from CMAQ here, because I assume they did some comparison. You know, maybe we're missing something. That $16 generated more
Covers
energy.
everything that they're using.
I don't know.
It was the rate, it was right and a half.
It was
Right.
1.5 times rate outside the city. That may be an easier sell, and maybe the 60% increase when we take that up only needs to be a 25%.
Well, if we're talking usage, just thinking about my bill, if they were paying 1.5 times, that would be like a $20 increase on their bill. If we're talking about usage, you know, at that rate structure. Anyway, it's something that's got to be looked at in more detail.
Well said. I agree with your point of view.
And just for thinking out loud, I mean, so somebody in Seattle Springs, if they're paying what I'm paying, 130 plus the 16, so they're paying 146. If we increase it 60% overnight, that would bring their bill to $233. I'm not saying that, you know.
Well, it costs $2.5 million just to keep that system.
Yes, sir.
going.
I don't disagree. You know, one thing I have thought about, do we just, I mean, this may not be possible, but do we take that cost of the Cielo Spring pipeline? Is that charged, can we charge that just to the residents of Cielo Springs, or does it have to be spread out amongst that 14%?
I don't know the answer to that.
Kim answered that question for us previously. That was asked when he said that it does have to be spread out across all of the residents. Like residents, and by like, meaning outside the city. Okay. He said that if we were to just impose it on the Cielo Springs residents, it would not.
Well, they would definitely sue us.
Yes, absolutely. And
I don't know why.
he said that he believes it would not hold up. Would not do it.
Okay, I was just curious.
Because I just remember that being asked.
Tim?
Customers would swallow.
Yes, it'd be spread across all the out of city limits, folks. If you try to target it, you got a problem.
Okay, all right, I just was curious.
Thank you, Tim.
I think customers would be able to swallow an increase of just the water rate increase. And then, you know, eventually do, like, if you do a base increase, do it in steps and that type of stuff, then the yearly income or the monthly income is not, or payments are not going to be as high as the 170 to, you know, 220 or whatever that was, 130.
146 to 250.
Yeah, so if you do it just by the rate and do it the tier and do a commercial rate, we might see, you know, some increase based on that.
Warren, when can we continue this discussion? We're about to reach our timeline.
Yeah, we can continue discussing this in February. I'll have some more information from you. I'll probably address what other communities are making. I probably won't have Councilor Graykill's idea of doing kind of looking at the rate study on having commercial, take more of that I may not have that till March, but I'll probably get that done in February. February 10th is not a lot of time, but I'll probably have more complete. But I think it's real important what Councilmember Draco said. I think that will take a little more time to do than the other things that.
You'll probably find out if any other municipalities have commercial.
Well,
I think that-
I'll definitely
Austin
check
does. I know that.
And we used to, so.
Yeah.
And we
yeah.
used to, so we should have some historical data. I suspect CMAC has looked at this. And
And they did, they have.
yeah.
I'll talk to OJ about it.
Okay.
OJ may have it, or you
Yeah, I'll
just
talk to
can
him tomorrow.
update it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
But we probably should break here and go to.
We're going to executive session. We're going to end the workshop. and go to the executive session. Let's set it on the Session. Um. You could not actually right there that if you had actually the consideration discussion of possible action on the petition for the sanitary section by Eric Moses.
Yes, I'll make a motion after much deliberation and looking at this from multiple points of view. Move that the city deny petition for this annexation. by Eric Moses.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion second. All those in favor? All opposed? Or accused or abstaining? Accused or something?
Recusal due to conflict.
Motion passes. And do I have another motion?
Would have been adjourned.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
And a motion a second. All in favor? And-